just want to do a shout out today to our men. Father's Day is coming up, and just want to spend a little bit of time talking about the men in our lives and creating space for them. Um, it's always good when we can have healthy conversations about men. Um, all of us either have father or brothers or uncles or grandfathers or significant others or, you know, some male somewhere attached to us. And this weekend is Father's Day. Just wanted to spend a little bit of time um, talking about creating space in our lives for the men that we love. And all of us, whether we have men in our lives or know men who are in our circle, we know that this weekend the fathers normally get a little bit less than women do when we have Mother's Day. But I just want to take an opportunity today and just create a space for that conversation. What are you doing to create space in your life um, for the man that is in your life, or the men that are in your life? We all can create that space where there are some positive things that can happen and show up for us when we are talking about the men in our lives and what that means and what that looks like. I actually lost my father about 2 years ago. I don't talk about it a lot, but he passed away 2 years ago. And I spent so much time, with my mother grieving that I don't, I've never really talked a lot about my own grief or what that looks like or whatever. But what I do know is that healthy relationships are necessary for men and women. The last time I was live, I think I talked about um, healthy relationships with your sister friends. And I thought that I'd just take a little bit of time today and just talk about the necessity of, those relationships that you have with the men in your lives being healthy as well. I'm grateful I have brothers. I have a son. I have two grandsons and male cousins that are in my life. And, I know we don't often talk a lot about men, and a lot of times men get bad raps. But I just wanted to spend some time today and this month, since we are talking about Father's Day, to really, uplift those men, see the good that they offer and bring to our lives. I know for me in particular, I'm very grateful for the men that I have in my life. My son and my one brother in particular, they've always been in my corner. I went through a divorce. My son was there for me. He bought me a house. How awesome is that, right? But when we think a lot of times about relationships and, with between men and women, we can sometimes be negative around it, or it can give off like it's a negative type of um, conversation, simply because a lot of times we don't talk about it enough. We don't talk about the good things, just like how I talked last week, or the last time I did a live, how difficult it can be to have healthy relationships with the same sex. It can be a challenge, and it can also be good to have those healthy relationships with other men. I was talking to a friend the other day, and she was saying, "Oh, I have healthy relationships with male friends. They're seriously male friends." And I think a lot of times we forget that those relationships exist, because they do exist. There are relationships that exist between men and women that are, totally platonic, because they value what they get from each other. It's just like any other relationship. When it's a win-win, you find a way um, to navigate those relationships and maintain them. A lot of times when, women in particular get married, or sometimes men as well, their spouse will be like, well, I don't think it's a good, idea for you to have a relationship with someone that's the opposite sex, or a man and a woman friend who they've been friends for a while, but now this person's in a serious relationship, and you question whether or not, it's a good thing for you to have that relationship. And I think that's something that everyone has to decide for themselves. You have to decide if you can maintain a platonic relationship with someone because it's something that's healthy for you, and you're not willing to jeopardize that. I think a lot of times we feel like, you know, we don't have a handle on it because we don't seek to have a handle on it, I believe. I think as you mature, and myself as a 50 plus woman, I've matured to the place where I feel like, I could have relationships with men without it having to be sexualized. And I think a lot of times women feel like they can't with a man because it will be sexualized. And we're living in a time and a space where, as we're maturing, we really need to be able to have healthy relationships with each other. We need to be able to create space where we can hold each other up, where we can lift each other up, where we can have conversations that are healthy, that help us to develop and grow ourselves. A lot of times we don't have that because we haven't established it, and because, quite frankly, we don't know how to. We've allowed society to dictate the types of relationships that we have or don't have. And as a result of that, we miss out on the goodness that happens, that can happen between two people. I hope that we find our way back to that, because I believe, and people could think, well, I'm always looking through rose colored glasses. I quite frankly don't care. But I really do believe in humanity. I believe that it exists within humanity for us to be able to have healthy relationships. And I believe it can only happen when we ourselves are healthy. If you're unhealthy and you're only thinking about what it is you want from a relationship, it's going to be hard for someone to hold space for you. I think it's important that we learn how to hold space for men. I think it's necessary, whether they're our brothers, our fathers, our uncles, our nephews, our cousins, or just friends. It's so important that we hold space for them, that understanding that sometimes it takes them a little bit longer to get to the place that we as women get to fairly early in our lives. A lot of times as women, we get there early because we're always thinking about how to better ourselves, how to, move in a healthier way, how to connect with healthy relationships. And we don't necessarily think of men in that light. We don't think of men as being those who want to have a healthy relationship. I believe that those type of men do exist. I believe that men get a bad rap sometimes, simply because we don't hear the male's voice enough in this space saying, hey, I need the women in my life to hold space for me. I need them to hold me up, to hold me accountable. I need them to speak well of me because I am that guy. Whereas a woman, she will tell you in a minute, I'm that girl. I'm her. And I'm going to hold space in my life for my other sisters that I believe are her too. And so when you in particular are moving in a space where you are looking for that, life changes for you. It really does. It happens very differently when you make that decision to live out of that space. I hope that we all find that place where we learn how to live in that space. It's so important. It's so important that we learn the necessity of moving in that space.